In the 19th and 20th centuries, poor farms served as a welfare system for many counties in Minnesota.
While many have disappeared, the one in Blue Earth County still stands.
KEYC News 12's Sean Logging journeys out to the homestead to learn about the new life of the old poor farm 140 years later.
Contemplating this all morning.
For Brian Frink, his job is art, but he feeds it in a very unique place.
Being a contemporary artist living in a rural place and using the landscape as inspiration.
Tucked away just south of Mankato city limits lies a place where history is written into the walls.
It was built as the county poor farm.
Built in 1877, it was a fully functioning farm, paid for and staffed by the county. It served as a home for the old, disabled, and others with no place else to go.
It was originally built for German immigrant farmers to come, and they didn't have family or they didn't have money. There was no Social Security or anything like that, so this was the place they would go.
Then in the 1950s, the county sold the poor farm.
It was run as an old folks home from the mid-50s to probably, I think, the mid-80s.
After that, it changed hands and fell into disrepair until in 1998, Brian stumbled upon this decades-old treasure.
And this place just felt like a big Brooklyn loft out in the middle of a cornfield, and so it just seemed perfect.
He'd been looking to move up after the garage converted into an art studio was getting a little cramped. Brian knew he couldn't let this slip away, but first he faced the challenge of getting his wife, Wilbur Neuschwander Frink, to agree. So he used a trip to the store.
We were getting ready to go to France, and I had asked him, I said, well, we need to go to the store and get a few more supplies.
I knew I had to convince Wilbur about buying this place.
So he starts driving in the opposite direction of where we were going to be going.
I kind of fooled her. I said, but first we're going to stop at this place.
We pull up here, and I remember getting out of the car, and I'm like, why are we doing this? And he's like, oh, this is for sale. Well, we're not going to buy a house out here in the country.
They toured the poor farm and the next day set off for a 2-week trip through France. So Brian used the vacation to sell the 9,000 square foot building and its 5 acres of land.
The whole time I kept telling her the poor farm can be like that chateau.
I couldn't put my head around it, but he did convince me. So when we came back after we were in France, we did begin the journey of buying this place, and what a whirlwind of a journey it has been.
The condition of the place?
It was horrible. It was really a mess.
Made for years of work.
We got the place like on July 1st, and on July 2nd I came here and took an axe and hit the wall right here and broke through all the plaster. And the funny thing about it was I peeled it back and there was a giant hornet's nest or wasp nest.
It was dead, but it served as the start to 6 years of demolition, replacing all 48 windows and tons of other work over the years to come.
In all the renovation, it was the only weird thing I ever found was that.
And Brian, who teaches at MSU Mankato, got some of his students to make the work possible.
They learned skills, so they learned how to sheetrock, they learned how to do basic carpentry, install doors and things like that. So it served an educational purpose, and I paid them very well.
It's work that is largely done, but with constant maintenance and some projects and plans for other improvements in the future. But while the poor farm lives on,
I'm very happy that we could take something that could have been torn down, neglected, abandoned.
They say they work to maintain the feel of the place, but never intended to bring it back to its original roots, which were largely lost.
Brian and I didn't have the idea of bringing it back to its historical glory, which it really didn't have. The poor farm was very simple. It didn't have anything fancy in it.
Since they've bought it, they've opened the doors to the public to tour the home, hosting fundraisers and events. It also serves as a creative engine for Brian, a painter, and Wilbur, a playwright.
I work over here at my grandmother's desk. I can look out on the orchard and the beautiful expanse of this area, and it just really fills me with creativity.
And for their 2 children's more formative years, it served as their home, although at first they wanted nothing to do with the place.
They both got married out here. Anna got married right here was and we had 100 people sitting in this room for her wedding, and then Blake was married out in the orchard. So they've come to really have a lot of, they really like it here now.
Among many coming a long way to calling the poor farm home.
The blessing of being able to live here, because there are so many people whose lives pass through here.
In Mankato, Sean Logging, KEYC News 12.